The clock ticked mercilessly, each second dragging itself forward like a wounded soldier on a battlefield. In the dimly lit room, Vincent sat motionless, his fingers tracing the rim of a half-empty glass. The amber liquid inside shimmered under the dying light of the chandelier. His face, sharp as a blade, was carved with an expression of cold amusement. "It's okay," he murmured, the words rolling off his tongue like a gentle wave before a storm. He had said those words so many times, to his enemies, his friends, his lovers. But tonight, they meant something different. Tonight, they were a warning. Across from him, Daniel squirmed in his chair, his breath unsteady. His suit, once pristine, was now wrinkled, the top buttons undone, revealing a sweat-slicked chest. The weight of Vincent's gaze bore down on him, making his bones feel like they would snap. "You're awfully quiet," Vincent said, swirling the glass in his hand. "Tell me, Daniel, do you regret it?" Daniel swallowed hard. His lips trembled, but no words came. Vincent sighed, setting the glass down with an almost affectionate touch. "I don't blame you. Fear does that to people. It steals their voice, twists their thoughts, makes them question reality." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the dark mahogany table. "You thought I wouldn't find out, didn't you?" Daniel's eyes darted to the door. "A futile hope." Vincent chuckled. "You know, betrayal is such an ugly thing. It always starts the same way. A whisper, a doubt, a fleeting temptation. But you were different. You didn't hesitate, did you?" Daniel's voice cracked. Vincent raised a hand, silencing him. "It's okay," he said again, softer this time, almost soothing. "We all make choices. Some just have consequences." The air between them was thick with tension. Outside, the city hummed with life, cars passing, people laughing, music spilling from neon-lit bars. A world unaware of the storm brewing within these four walls. Vincent stood up, buttoning his jacket with deliberate slowness. "You see, Daniel, I don't believe in accidents. I believe in intentions. And yours." He exhaled sharply. "Yours were crystal clear." Daniel's breath hitched. "Vincent, please." A flicker of annoyance crossed Vincent's face. He tilted his head, studying Daniel like one would study an insect before crushing it beneath their heel. "You don't get to beg," Vincent said, his voice devoid of warmth. "Not after what you did." Daniel's body tensed, the weight of his sins pressing down on him. He had underestimated Vincent. They all had, but it was too late now. Vincent took a step closer, his shadow swallowing Daniel whole. "It's okay," he whispered one last time. And then, Daniel's breath came in short, ragged gasps. His chest heaved as the walls of the room seemed to close in on him. The air felt heavier, thicker, like a grave waiting to be filled. His fingers twitched against the armrest of the chair, his mind scrambling for an escape, for a way to undo the moment that had led him here. But there was no undoing it. Vincent stood over him, his expression unreadable. His dark eyes held no anger, no hatred, just an unsettling calm, like a predator with time on its hands. He reached for the glass he had set down earlier and took a slow sip, savoring the burn before speaking again. "You know," Vincent mused, tapping the rim of the glass with his finger, "it fascinates me how people lie to themselves. They do something unforgivable, and then they beg. They convince themselves they had no choice. That fate pushed them into a corner. But you and I both know that's not true, don't we?" Daniel's jaw clenched. He wanted to deny it, to protest, but his throat was too dry, and the weight of his own guilt was suffocating. Vincent continued, You weren't desperate. You weren't backed into a corner. You were greedy, and worse. He tilted his head. You thought you were smarter than me. A cold sweat broke across Daniel's forehead. He could hear the blood pounding in his ears. I didn't think... No, Vincent cut in, his voice low. You didn't. He placed the glass down again, but this time with more force. The clink of crystal against wood echoed in the silence. I gave you everything, Vincent said, pacing slowly around the room. I brought you in when no one else would. I trusted you. And in return, he let out a humorless chuckle. You sold me out. Daniel flinched. He wanted to argue, to defend himself. But what was the point? The truth was suffocating, crushing him beneath its weight. Vincent turned back to face him. Tell me something, Daniel. Was it worth it? Daniel's hands gripped the armrests, his knuckles turning white. He had spent so long convincing himself that he had done the right thing, that he had made the only logical choice. But now, under Vincent's gaze, those justifications felt like nothing more than paper-thin excuses. Look, Vincent, Spare me. Vincent waved a hand dismissively. We both know what happens next. The only question is how much you want to suffer before it's over. Daniel's breath hitched. Vincent leaned in, lowering his voice. I've been kind to you, Daniel, more than you deserve. But kindness has its limits. A sudden knock at the door made Daniel jolt. Vincent didn't react. He straightened up, rolling his shoulders, then spoke without turning his head. Come in. The door swung open. Two men stepped inside, their presence like a shadow stretching across the room. They were dressed in tailored suits, but there was nothing refined about them. Their eyes were cold, unforgiving. Daniel's pulse quickened. Vincent gestured lazily toward him. Take him. Daniel's chair scraped against the floor as he lurched forward, panic finally breaking through his paralysis. Wait, Vincent, please. The two men grabbed him before he could move another inch. Their grip was ironclad, their strength undeniable. He struggled, kicking wildly, but it was useless. Vincent watched, unbothered. It's okay, Daniel, he murmured. No, please. The men dragged him toward the door, his desperate pleas falling on deaf ears. Vincent didn't follow. He simply poured himself another drink, watching as Daniel disappeared into the dark hallway. The door shut behind them with a quiet click. Silence. Vincent exhaled, savoring the moment. Then, with an almost bored expression, he lifted his glass and took another sip. It's okay, he whispered once more. But this time, there was no one left to hear him. The hallway stretched endlessly before Daniel, its walls suffocating him with their cold indifference. His captors didn't speak, didn't acknowledge his desperate protests. Their grip on his arms was like steel, unrelenting, as they marched him forward. He knew where this was headed. He had seen it happen to others. Men who thought they were untouchable. Men who thought Vincent was merciful. But Vincent wasn't merciful. Vincent was patient. That was worse. They reached an elevator at the far end of the hall. One of the men pressed a button. A quiet ding echoed in the silence, and the doors slid open. Daniel's body tensed. Listen, please. I can fix this. I can make this right. No response. They shoved him inside. The elevator doors closed, sealing him in with nothing but his own labored breathing and the quiet hum of descent. A basement, of course. The moment the doors slid open, Daniel was pulled forward into a dimly lit concrete room. It smelled of damp earth and something metallic, something he recognized instantly. Blood. In the center of the room stood a single chair, The men didn't hesitate. They shoved him down, binding his wrists behind him. He thrashed, twisting against their grip. But they were professionals. This wasn't their first time. And then they left. Daniel's breath came in ragged gasps, his mind racing through every possibility, every escape route. But deep down, he knew there was no way out of this. Then came the footsteps, slow, measured. Vincent stepped into the room, his tailored suit a stark contrast against the bleakness of their surroundings. He carried no weapons. He didn't need to. Daniel swallowed hard. "Vincent, you don't have to do this." Vincent stopped in front of him, his expression unreadable. "Of course I do." He crouched slightly, so they were at eye level. "You know what the funny thing is, Daniel?" His voice was soft, almost thoughtful. "I gave you everything, and you still wanted more." I was scared," Daniel stammered. "I didn't have a choice." Vincent's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "There is always a choice." He straightened up, adjusting his cuffs. "I won't drag this out. I'm not a cruel man." Daniel flinched as Vincent reached into his pocket. He braced himself for the worst. A gun, a blade, a final blow. But Vincent pulled out a cigarette. He lit it, inhaling deeply before exhaling a slow, deliberate stream of smoke. And then, with a casual flick of his fingers, he dropped it onto the floor, onto something Daniel hadn't noticed before. Gasoline. Panic flooded Daniel's veins. "Vincent, wait." The flames ignited instantly, licking hungrily at the ground. The heat rushed toward him, relentless, merciless. Vincent took a step back, watching as the fire spread. "It's okay," he murmured, his voice almost drowned out by the roar of the flames. Daniel screamed. Vincent turned and walked away, never looking back. The door clicked shut behind him, and then silence. The world would move on. People would forget Daniel's name. But Vincent would remember. And the next time someone thought they could betray him and walk away, they would remember too.